If you struggle with shyness or social anxiety, check out our free No BS training course with actual useful advice you can do from home. None of that just get out there nonsense. The link is in the description below. For now, let's get to today's question.
It can be, but you have to look at how the medical profession defines a disorder. Of course, human beings experience anxiety at times, including social anxiety. We're mammals after all. We are attuned to how a group is formed and whether we are part of it. A disorder in this sense is when the problem, social anxiety, becomes so bad that it interferes with the functioning of daily life. At that point, it can be diagnosable as social anxiety disorder. So, don't think of it as a binary choice. Does not have type 1 diabetes. For instance, think of it as a spectrum, from low anxiety to high anxiety, where it reaches a threshold to be called a disorder. Again, let me finish that feeling anxious around people and groups is part of the mammalian superpower built into us. The more we can accept certain moments of anxiety, the less it has power over us. Yes, indeed it is very real. If you were here, I would be curious to know why you would question this. I assume you do not have any problem being around people you have just met and don't know. But there are people who suffer from being around people they don't know, and being scrutinized and evaluated. It can be debilitating to the point of limiting and shaping their social lives to only having relationships with those they are familiar with. Question: if it was not a genuine psychological disorder, and considering how it severely limits having a more robust, fulfilling life, what would be the motivation to live this way? My question is one aimed at what the payoff would be to suffer so, if one had volitional control and was just faking it. Pretty big price to pay, wouldn't you say? It is the same question that comes to mind whenever it comes to any noxious, difficult symptoms to deal with, either behavioral or of thinking. If it was not a disorder, what would motivate one to think that other people are out to hurt them, and to live every day obsessed about such a thought? What's the motivation? If it isn't a disorder, what would the motivation be for a woman to claim that her brother or father sexually abused her in childhood, if not true? Considering the life she lives which constricts her relationships with others, particularly men, and to be tortured by such thoughts, what would the payoff be to make it worth that? Or even just a child who speaks of being abused, and is disbelieved, what's the payoff to think the people who brought you into the world cannot be trusted, and they hate him? Why would he torture himself with such ideas if he had a choice not to think this? Bruce Kugler, Ph.D. In a word sense, yes, since the medical definition of a disorder is an illness that disrupts normal physical or mental functions. In reality, no, for this definition is derived from the medical model of illness that views these problems as just that, an illness, and that they are caused by something going physically wrong in the brain that needs correcting, often through medication. This overlooks the bigger picture and doesn't reflect what really happens to us. As you know, we don't simply wake up one day with these problems. They start off slowly and get stronger and stronger over time. Few of us, if any, had social anxiety disorder as a child. It's usually just the opposite. Yet something happens that turns the confidence we had as children into anxiety. Something happens to us that takes away our confidence and fills us with insecurity. So much insecurity that anxiety, our self-protection system, kicks in, and it isn't a defective gene, or an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. The neurotransmitters serotonin and dopamine are usually the ones blamed, or that our brains are somehow different from other people's. It's a whole series of experiences, learning, feelings, thoughts and behaviors that set the ball rolling towards insecurity and anxiety disorders. Far from being a mystery, the development of these problems follows a logical psychological progression, and we can map out what happens every step of the way. Not diseases, disorders or mental illness. They involve natural survival instincts common to us all. Normal self-protective thoughts, feelings and behaviors that become oversensitive, intensified and grossly exaggerated due to negative life experiences. Life experiences that condition us to be afraid. Rarely single awful events, as happens with many forms of PTSD, it's often many frequent, regular, consistently negative experiences that slowly chip away our confidence and leave us feeling insecure and vulnerable. When we look at social anxiety disorder through the lens of evolution and survival, Our mind is working perfectly and normally given our life experiences. This problem develops from learning and conditioning. It's just that what we learned wasn't actually true. Indeed, most other people would think, feel and behave in a similar way if they went through our experiences, although genetic predispositions have a part to play. I genuinely don't know. I've been through some serious anxiety, and I don't want to comment on others' experiences. If what I'm about to say doesn't ring true for you, no worries. Who cares? I don't think I'd ever been diagnosed with anything. Possibilities for what I had include anxiety disorder, separation anxiety, panic disorder, and a few other combinations of those words. Each one came with its own handy list of symptoms and causes, and neatly specified how curable it was. Picking a neatly labeled box to fit my problems into didn't help me. What did help was a year of therapy, hard and at times terrifying work, and slow progress. I identified the things that were harming me and took steps to neutralize them. I don't think that social anxiety needs to be a clinical disorder. I think that it's a problem in society, and needs to be fixed. Declaring that you have a disorder doesn't, in my opinion, help. The goal here isn't to make it part of your identity, it's to fix it. If diagnosing it helps that happen, I'm all for it. But if it's initiated into the realm of vague, bandwagon-wide disorders, looking at you, OCD, then I think it'll do more harm than good.